Good morning, everyone, and welcome to SPACC Live, Public Policy Conversations. For the next couple of weeks, SPACC will be hosting this series of policy webinars, a quick half-hour conversations with East Metro policymakers at multiple levels of government. Questions can be submitted during the webinar by clicking the question button at the bottom of your screen. Our host is Shannon Watson, Director of Public Affairs of the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. Our featured guest today is South St. Paul Mayor James P. Francis.
Thanks, Evie, and thank you everyone who is attending. Thank you, Mayor Francis, for coming on our little TV show.
Yeah, no problem. Call me Jimmy.
Okay, will do. So you got the blue suit go. I saw something about blue suits, and so I wore a blue shirt. Is that okay?
That's great. It's helpful for a colorblind guy to have all the same suits. So they're all blue suits.
That way you make sure you match.
Yeah, it's very helpful. The only oddity I get to choose is my tie, and usually my daughter, my wife, has picked all the ties that match blue, so I know I'm in good shape.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, we do appreciate you joining us. And if it's okay with you, I'm going to jump right into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is a great thing to be doing at this time, in practicing and honing in your skills as a new television producer, right? To have us on and talk. And so I really appreciate the Chamber putting this together and being forward thinking on it.
Awesome. So how has the city of South St. Paul sort of changed its operations to keep people safe and then also keep the business of local government moving?
Well, what we did, we were early adapters. I believe we were one of the first in our county, if not the first, before the county to declare an emergency action and to allow us to maintain our, the biggest thing we feared in this was our ability to meet. And so we took the emergency action for only the fact that we then could meet via computer versus in person. And that was what the emergency order was. And so we early adapted that. We closed our buildings early, also in an idea that we would, at least it was my idea, that better safe than sorry, without knowing the facts. And we're not having to incur costs if they find out in 2 weeks that we have to wash everything down with bleach or what have you, where the public was. So those two actions that we took early on kind of got our staff and the business people in order to be able to start to operate that way. And so we were ahead of the curve in that. And I think that, the changes to our operation were phased in because everybody was still coming to work. All of our staff was still coming. Nobody was not doing their hours, but we were limiting the access to the public before it was really mandated. And so I think that helped us as a city kind of streamline staff as well as the citizens to find out how our government was going to continue to work.
That's awesome. How many staff do you have at the city?
Oh, you'd have to ask me that, wouldn't you? I don't know.
Ballpark, of course.
108,
okay.
Maybe, that's police. That doesn't include the fire, I don't believe. I think it's another 35 if we did the South Metro Fire. They're part of us, but we also share them with West St. Paul. So roughly 108 people.
Gotcha. So that's not a small number of people to be coordinating, working from home and making sure that everything is still getting done.
We have an airport, we have a marine, a arena, and we have parks and rec, functions, buildings. And so all of those people had to figure, take the ice out and all of those things that they weren't planning on doing. So it was quite interesting. Same with the airport too. We, to be able to be open and continue, we're a necessity. We have to keep our airport open. So it's interesting for sure.
Definitely a logistical challenge.
Yes, that's the word. That's what I was looking for, is the logistical challenge.
Yeah. So as a mayor, how are you working with other levels of government in decision making and as these plans move forward?
Well, like I said earlier, we kind of were early adapters of this. And so listening to our other elected, Representative Rick Hansen, Senators Carla Bigham, Senator Matt Klein, and Representative Ann Coughlin, of those, Rick Hansen is the senior had more time. So a lot of the information has flowed from the government, from him to us, as well as our county officials, our Commissioner Kathleen Gaylord. So our immediate relationship was to tell them about what we were doing and keep that line of communication open, and sharing with them all of the things that we were doing. And then I check in periodically with them all via telephone, just to say, what do you need from me? What are you hearing? And what can we expect? All of that to say that they have in turn turned that back to us and said, you do what you need for your city, and make sure that you're doing what you need to analyze, because we're different than Blaine, and we're different than Roseau, and we're all different, and we all have different things, but we actually control our jurisdiction. So they again reiterated the fact and gave us the comfort to know that whatever our decision is our decision, and they're going to be okay with that too. So that's how I've been interacting with other governments officials in the process.
That's great. That sounds like a good partnership and a lot of information sharing. And I think that's at least my experience. That's what people have been kind of hungry for, is just what's happening and why.
It's key. Even if it's just sharing the official CDC information on a regular basis. One of the things I'm very happy that's happening is our governor's choice to give daily updates at roughly the same time. I think that is, again, he's a teacher, so that's not foreign to him how to be able to do those things, but I think it's key. It may become tiresome, or, I don't know what the other word is for some people, but I think just everybody can tune in and get what they want, or get as much as they need. And I think that's the important part. We try to do that here at the city as well. It's a little tougher. Not everybody's on the internet. So we're trying to work with the reporters at TV stations and the Pioneer Press to get some of that information out for us, and that's been helpful too.
Have you had a lot of outreach from citizens asking the city for information?
Yes, and a lot of confusion. Different. Our cities are same as many cities, but also different than others, where the form of government, the city administrator runs our city to the day-to-day opportunities or things. We do the policy and the long-term planning and budgeting. So I'm not in charge of the cop to go see somebody, so they think that I control those things, but they also think that we have jurisdiction or control over our special school district number 6, which is another part of our city that's a big hub. We're crossed, so we get a lot of information from the citizens about what the school is doing in a manner that they believe we should be. It's our responsibility to do that. What other thing I'll share is we also had our churches in our community. We had a Catholic priest that was continuing to do mass and then continuing to give out communion. Again, it's not our jurisdiction to police that. That's the archdiocese place. We can only share with that priest the concerns that people have, and the things that the governor has shared with us to enforce that at a time, to arrest people, or they were keeping their distance. Everybody was in their cars. They all knew what they're doing, and so you have to take all of those things in and kind of prioritize those from citizens, the complaints, and try to explain and educate them. And that's my point, is we've moved to education, not enforcement. We're educating people. We're educating those callers that are calling me about the school, and relaying the message, but also educating them to let people know that, if you have that special school district, here's their information. If you have a child, if you have those concerns. And so we're moving more into the education versus enforcement. And, again, because people don't know. Some people aren't on the internet. It's hard to believe as we sit and have a meeting here on the internet from different places, with people joining us from different places. Folks aren't getting that. They're waiting. They're hearing it from their daughter, who only calls every 3 days or something, So we just have to be kind and remember that, and use that opportunity to educate people where needed.
Yeah, I feel like average citizens are getting a lot of education about the different levels of government and jurisdictions and who's actually in charge of what. sometimes in a productive way, and sometimes, you know, depending on the sort of urgency of their issue, in a frustrating way. But I think that'll help.
One of the fallouts of that for us, just, you know, one thing we had to do at our meeting on Monday was inform the public that, you know, flushing sanitary things, you know, only toilet paper, you know, it's not something you want to have to do or you think you need to do, but everybody's home, and now we have all of these things happening, and people are doing things differently, and it's flooding the system literally. It's not flooding us as much as it's going to flood back to the people. So we want to, you know, remind them that you can't flush those things, and you are going to have a problem eventually if you do, and if everybody does it, you know, it's not good. And so that's not one of the happy things we get to share, but it's practical in a changing system, right?
Yeah, that was one of my personal crusades. I personally, when I was about 8, we had the experience of learning the hard way that you do not flush Kleenex, like this Kleenex, do not flush.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever seen my dad so mad.
Oh.
I had to mow lawns for a really long time to pay that plumbing bill, but yeah, that's one of those things when there was toilet paper shortages and people couldn't find wipes, and it's like toilet paper only.
Yeah, right. Yes, it's a necessity at this time for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, people are doing things differently, and we're all trying to stay home and shelter in place, but also have some semblance of normalcy and deal with that, you know, like the governor talks about, you know, our physical health, but also our economic health and our spiritual health. And so a lot of people have been getting out to parks, and I know your city has a lot of parks. Minneapolis was having a hard time with people sort of bunching up and not doing that social distancing. Have you seen that in South St. Paul?
We have seen a little bit of that in terms of, I think it's youth that are, you know, having a parking lot party, just as a form of reference. I think we've had a few of those. Again, our officers are doing education versus enforcement, and sharing with them that that's not good. We have taken precautions, you know, shutting down our our play structures at parks, and some of those are crossed over with the school, and so just as a whole, we closed all of those, you know, equipment down and put signs on them. We haven't taken down basketball hoops, and we haven't done those kinds of things, but we're fortunate in that we have a city with a lot of sidewalks and a lot of you know, parks that are well established. So we have kind of this built-in separation opportunity in our parks. So it hasn't been an issue. There's plenty of space for folks to roam. And I think what I'm just seeing personally as I drive around, looking and, you know, some signing documents, I'm trying to stay home as much as I can as well. My job allows me to stay home as well, but get out and do a couple things that are necessities. And I think people are working in shifts. People are walking in shifts, and, you know, not kind of overloading the parks. And I think I see it in the fields where groups of kids came there together, but they're playing far enough apart where they're not, you know, and they're not playing the same game. They're playing individual things and flying RC cars and that kind of stuff, or airplanes. And so I don't think our parks were quite as condensed as maybe a Minneapolis park is. I think we have a little more green space that's separated, and again, deeper, not the residential capacity that Minneapolis has. So we're fortunate in that.
Gotcha. There's a selling point for you for
Yeah.
being in South St. Paul. More park for less people.
That's right.
Awesome. So the COVID pandemic has literally changed the world. It seems to be like what we're all talking about and having to deal with. But there were priorities and public policy things that were important before this all started. And so some of those continue to be important. I was wondering, what are other things that you're continuing to work on, or have you just hit the pause button on everything?
No, development for sure is one. We just had this discussion on Monday. our role, we wear two hats in our city of South St. Paul. Our Economic Development Authority, the EDA, is members of the city council in the capacity of president and commissioners on the EDA. And so in our EDA meeting, we had the discussion that, one of the things we can do to help this is to continue to do that, and be prepared for the folks when the developers want to do the projects. Because at some point, everybody, or some people, I shouldn't say everybody, there's projects going to be ready to go. Folks are going to have money, investment money is going to be put into the market and spent, and it may not be tomorrow, it could be in a month or two, but as economic development, we need to be ready for that, and holding off and dragging our feet, and perhaps extending leases, or on property that we have set for demolition or to transform. We need to look at those in the big picture, because those are the things that are going to continue to bring jobs to the city and diversify us. It's going to do facelift for us, which is much needed and wanted, and it's part of our plan. So as best we can, we're going to continue to push down that road of economic development and keep that going during this time, because we can. We have a small department, so it's not like we've got to employ, if it gets really bad, a lot of people to make things happen. And developers are going to be looking for cities and opportunities that are moving forward and working. And so I think if anything has changed in that for us, it has been to remind ourselves of our roles and the areas that we can affect, especially with what we want to do in our city, the opportunities that we have for growth and development and redevelopment. We're a first ring suburb, as you well know, the little sister city to St. Paul. So we're built out, our boundaries are built out, but there is redevelopment in our Stockyards area and our riverfront area that is what we've been focused on for the past 10 years, and will continue to be focused on for the remaining 10 years as we try to get to our next goal with the comp plans. So, so I guess that in conclusion to that question, it's changing, but we're trying to keep some normalcy in the areas that we can, and to not be afraid, because that's what that role is to give economic help to the existing businesses to help keep them here, and then to continue to welcome new businesses where available. So.
Right. And I saw something just kind of in passing that I wasn't aware of that your city did, is the Future Inc. or what's the name? I know just a little bit.
South St. Paul Futures?
Yes.
Yes.
So that is that business assistance?
Yes, and then that's a private group. They're a lending source that is, they're not a bank. It started many years ago with a group of business owners and operators in South St. Paul that said, let's put a fund together to help people that get alternative financing. Again, that's not a bank. It's not meant for operations. It's not meant for different things. It's meant to, help where needed. And so they've been tremendous, not only in welcoming more loans for people, but being flexible for those that have loans with us that are experiencing their retail store shut down, and put the pause button on their payments. And so they're a great example of, a little niche that we have in South St. Paul that can help with funding and financing that other communities don't have.
That's awesome. That's kind of one of those things that helps in the same way that your comp plan helps drive what you're doing. Because nobody, as we do comp plans, 10 and 20 years at a time, of course we don't know what's going to happen, and the world could be different. And sometimes the world isn't as radically different as it is, with this situation. But I think you're the first person who I've talked to where the sort of recovery of this is just staying the course. And I imagine that has to feel good that you're going the right direction if that's your recovery plan.
it's helpful, right? It keeps positivity in the mix and keeps people, going for the prize. We also had a discussion in that development because what our redevelopment is calling for us to bring people closer together and condense them in high rise living with amenities and so forth. So one of the directives is in the discussion was, how are we going to work these kinds of situations into those mixes? Okay, let's be aware of those as we move forward to say, what happens if this is an annual thing, or it happens more often. We're putting people closer together. What are we going to do now when we don't even have that built yet? What kinds of things can we think about that we could do to help, those developments tackle this issue in the future? Whether that's, again, you brainstorm or you think outside the box. Are there decontamination stations by your cars? Are there, ways to put receive your goods from somebody without speaking to them? Is there going to be drop points? Is there going to be technology that we can incorporate into those developments that will help assist us in people staying at home for long periods of time and not having to go out and intermix with each other as well? So again, it's not, it's opportunity as I look at it. It's just, let's look at it differently. Let's put that in the mix. And maybe there's nothing that we can do. It's going to be the same as we've built them for the past 10 years. But if somebody can take pause and say, we should probably have a room that can be, a gathering with refrigerators for people to get their Simon delivers delivered, or, whatever. And it sits in there versus whatever. So anyways, that's kind of our thought on economic development, as well as trying to be thoughtful and still creating the new tomorrow, right?
Right. And that's a good way to look at it, because, we usually talk about change as a bad thing, like humans generally, we like change if we are changing, but if the change is being sort of thrust upon us, we like, no, don't change. And that seems like something that's kind of new and different that you've already taken from this experience for sort of good change. Can you think of anything else is there anything else that's sort of crossed your desk that might be good change?
Well, we have a tremendous opportunity that we've been working on for a few years. It's transformative for the city of South St. Paul, and that is a MnDOT project to do a $32 million road improvement for our Concord Street. It's a very complicated project. It's taken a lot of time and effort, and there's funding from the federal dollars. There's funding from our state, our county. There's turnbacks. So there's a lot of entities involved in this, and it's taken a long time, but it's set to start in 2021. And so, again, business owners that are in business, they're going to be impacted on this street as well. So one of the things I've asked right away is our city talking to these entities that hold the purse strings and are running the project. If there's opportunity to put the pause on this to help our business owners, let's make sure we're asking that question right now, well in advance, based on this. They can have enough time to get back and get things back on track for them to be then closed down for major road improvement. We need to be cautious of that. But also the opportunity balancing that opportunity, saying, well, it is far enough in the distance, and it is a project that will keep people working and, being a major improvement for the city of South St. Paul. And so to stop it or not get it done altogether would be terrible. It would be, not devastating, but costly to our city, because we can't come up with those funds. $32 million for us to do this road, it would financially crush us.
Yeah.
As we look at our budgets, right? And so this partnership is vital, and it's vital to bring new business, and there's so many things, but it is set in the future. That change the whole thing has already gotten people, because it's change, they don't like that, and it's different. So I try to stay at that 50,000 foot level and look at the whole as the city, right? Not just looking at a couple of, miles of road, but as the whole city, and try to get people up to that same level in their thought process of why this is a good thing and why change isn't that bad. Yes, it's going to stink when construction happens anywhere. It's not easy. There are going to be some bumps, but we can plan for those and we can, make accommodations. But in the end, the new road that's going to lead people into your business or into our city, or, up the hill to existing businesses, or buy a new house, or to our river parks trail system, it's going to be, a beautiful, uplifting, positive thing. And as the city, we look at it as a city guy at 50,000 feet going, wow, we couldn't have done this. But we got our infrastructure taken care of. We got our water and sewer and sanitary sewer all taken care of down there in a major corridor. And people don't think that that's a very exciting thing, right? You don't think about it as a citizen, like, who cares about that? But me as a policy guy that got elected to do this, I'm very excited that those things, we're getting that stuff done for another 50 years. And I can leave the city knowing that, we did a bunch of good things and worked with those partners, right? The county, the state, the federal, to make it all happen. And then our local businesses, we worked with them to improve their front door, as well as, help them through the pain, right? Maybe waiving fees or helping with assessments or those kinds of things. Those still get to be discussed. So in the era of change, which, that's going, you still need to, sorry, my cuckoo clock is going off. It's 12 o'clock too, so it's going to go a few times here. It's one of the faux pas I told the people in my last video, distractions, stop the distractions. And here I am guilty of it. So, cuckoo. Good timing, right? A little levity in the conversation. So
absolutely. No, and I thought that was great. And I appreciate your cuckoo clock keeping us on time, because I do want to be respectful of your time and our audience's time. So I think that's a great note to end on, because what you're talking about is things that government does every day, making those long-term plans, and dealing with change, and how do we make things more efficient and more, easier for people. Even though we have a little bit of a bump in the road, we'll smooth it out and we'll get there. So I definitely appreciate that kind of optimism coming from you.
We need it. Right from our leaders, myself, my city council, we have 6 council people, and people like you that work for businesses like the chamber, to keep that positivity going and help give at least that sense that there's people along with us, right, in this, and we're in it together, and we're here to support you and buy from you when we can, and support you when we can, and when you can't do it, we can help you. And you guys, what you're doing here with these videos, right? It's you're punting, you're taking what you would normally not be doing and giving it to everybody and bringing in more people and making it more inclusive. And that might make a business and look at you later and go, wow, when I was struggling and I needed to be on a webinar about, the IRS guidelines for payroll, the chamber came through for me, and I wasn't even a member. I'm going to be a member now, right? So that's the positive, that's the silver lining in all of this, that we have the ability to do it. We just need to do it, continue to do it, and showcase it. So thank you for allowing South St. Paul to be part of this and showcasing what we do. And as I always say, I always send with love from South St. Paul. They used to say, send them all to South St. Paul when we were the stockyards, and send all the cattle and the livestock here. But now we're sending love. So sending love from South St. Paul, and thank you for allowing us to be here today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Evie, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Well, Shannon, Jimmy, thank you for joining us today. This session was recorded and will be available at a later date posted on our website. For more information on SPACC Live, public policy conversations, and other SPACC events, please refer to our calendar at stpaulchamber.com. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe on social media. Have a great day today.